we had our largest registration as far as teams went this past year. So, every year it seems like we're adding more and more teams. So that's awesome. It's always good to see the division growing. I know we went with kind of a different format for nationals this year, so I'm anxious to see how everyone feels that went. We tried to kind of mix things up so that there was more distribution amongst the levels of teams, and that teams kind of got to play some different opponents than they would have otherwise. I don't have a lot to say. I know there were a couple tournaments. Chicago hosted, Phoenix hosted. I think there was a tournament on the East Coast too at one point. Yeah, how does everyone feel the season went or nationals went? I know I wasn't there personally, so I don't have a feeling of how things turned out, but.
Hey, Jen, it's Quentin again. Obviously,
Yeah.
I wasn't there, but I did hit when my athletes played with Virginia. They came in that like 5th to 8th place range, but they were kind of disappointed that they didn't really get to determine where they were because of the new system. But that was just feedback when my athlete had given me. Ruby Albert played for the Vortex team.
Can you elaborate on what you mean by they didn't get to determine where they? You mean as far as rankings?
You played, yeah. You didn't know whether you were 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th. It was just kind of you had this final game. It was the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th place.
I see what you mean. Yes,
but there wasn't. You don't know who was 5th, who was 6th, who was 7th, who was 8th.
Yes, yeah.
That was just something somebody told me. Obviously,
yes.
I had nothing to do with any of it.
But no, I appreciate that feedback. I thought that would be a point of concern too, because I mean, you kind of like if you go to nationals, you do want to know how you finish and how you place. Yeah. I know one thing that was a point of contention for some people was the rankings this year. So we're definitely going to put some more effort into that this coming season, but that's also going to require more effort on the team reps parts. It's hard for us as a women's division committee to know how all of the teams are playing, how everyone is doing throughout the country, and to keep up with, what's going on exactly. So we're going to rely more on the team reps to give us feedback throughout this season for rankings and try to publish that back out to you all then on a regular basis. I don't know if we'll do monthly or every 6 weeks. It's difficult because we as a women's division don't have as many tournaments and games going on. So our rankings might not change, or there might not be a lot of inputs. Like if teams don't play, how do you rank them? Even if they're a good team, so we'll have to figure that out. But hopefully by just doing some sort of survey, maybe in December and then February, March, and April, right before nationals, that'll give us a better ranking system than what we had this year. I don't know if anyone has any input on how they'd like to see that be executed, other than me just sending out a survey and saying, hey, rank all 16 teams or 18 teams, whatever we end up with next year. Yeah, go ahead, Amber.
I know, so this last season, it was more in the survey, rank the teams you played, but we didn't rank ourselves in that. So I know that was one question that like Jen brought up to me later. Hey, what did we rank ourselves? I'm like, let me go back. I don't think we did. So we ranked everyone we played, but we didn't put ourselves in that. And so we just sort of guessed at what we might be ranked at for nationals, like just to think of where do we think we're going to be put into the bracket. But again, for us, at least we play Parasport a lot, and then we play a few other teams here and there through the season, but we don't play enough of the other teams. We generally know, the Charlottes and the Wausau's and, the other teams that are really good are usually at the top. And so that is always hard for us, like in the end of a season to rank because we don't play them, but we do know that that's a thing, but we never really ranked ourselves either. So I think that also made it hard because we were like, wait, what do we say? So we just sort of figured we were like middle of the pack, which we were like towards the middle to end of the middle of the pack. So I feel like that sort of went okay for us. And again, like others mentioned, at the end we didn't know what we were ranked, and even Lee came up was like, hey, what rank did we all finish? I'm like, I don't know. And so he went and said he found out and said that we were like 9th and 10th, I think, from our game. So I don't know how he found out or what question was asked, but somehow there was something like monitoring that, even though it wasn't like publicly published, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not remembering correctly, but I think the bottom part of the bracket, like there were actual places that corresponded with some of that, but then the middle of it, like you were just in friendly gameplay. So those teams didn't end up with a place at all at the end. Yeah, we definitely tried something a little bit new this year. The national schedule has always been something that needs a little bit of tweaking and still probably needs a little bit of tweaking, but every year when we change the number of teams, it kind of changes that dynamic a little bit too. So I appreciate that feedback though, because I did notice that when I looked at the bracket and I was like, oh, if I was one of these teams down here and I didn't know how I finished, I don't know how I would feel about that as well. So and then when we do rankings for this season and we send out surveys for teams, we'll try to be specific on whether or not you're supposed to rank yourself, and fairly, obviously, but some teams don't. So sometimes it's better just to say like, oh, don't rank yourself at all and leave that out, because there's bias amongst some teams and how they rank themselves, obviously. Anyone else have any feedback on nationals and the season in general, tournaments? I don't know. Oh, Junior hopped on.
I apologize. I'm at Dallas and there's bad storms hitting everywhere. So I almost got killed twice. So I apologize.
Do you have anything to say about nationals?
Yeah. So first of all, ladies, thank you for jumping on this call, and gentlemen, thank you for fantastic 24-25 season. We know nationals was a little different this year, so I apologize beforehand, but we're always trying to do what's best for the division, and apparently this format didn't work, so we're going to go back to the drawing board and try a couple of things. We have a couple suggestions. One of them is going to a 2-tier, 8-team nationals. Going to an Elite Eight and then remainder 8 tournament. So it'd be 2 tournaments with 8 teams each for the top 16 teams. We've also talked about possibly a couple of other formats. One of them where it would involve intercollegiate women's, which is a little bit farther, but it's something that we would have to talk to the intercollegiate board about. This has been the largest season we've had team-wise, so I thank all of you for continuing to grow the division. It's meant a lot for the executive committee to continue with all the help that everyone's putting in growing it. But as I said, the executive committee and I have always tried to do what's best for the division, and we tried to try different things to give the most bang for the buck for all the teams that are participating in nationals. So I am very open to suggestions for nationals, and I welcome any feedback to make the division a much better division. Any questions? All right, well, I will mute myself and continue the meeting.
All right. Does anyone else have any feedback on how the season went? If not, we'll move on to the amendment proposals for this evening. No. Okay, perfect. Tina, are you able to share them? I could probably try to figure out how to share my screen.
Yeah, I can certainly
Nope.
share them if you need me to, if you can't sort it out.
Let me see here. Do you mind sharing them? Just because my Word is acting funny.
Yeah,
I have
no
to, like,
problem.
open them in Google Docs. All right. Okay. So the first amendment proposal that we have is to change the timeline that we are required in order to announce the annual assembly. Currently, the women's division has to announce it 90 days in advance, which just makes it a little bit difficult time-wise. That's actually why we're having it in June, because we didn't get around to announcing it really, and we kind of had to push it back a little bit. So we are hoping to change that to 45 days in advance. That just gives us a little bit more time and flexibility to select a date in accordance to our guidelines and be compliant with that. And also because last year when I did announce it really far in advance, everyone forgot about it by the time that it came around. So hopefully in 45 days, people don't forget about it. So are we just going to go through these, Tina, and then we'll vote at the end? Okay. All right. So everyone just keep that in mind. If you have any questions as we're going through these, please just kind of raise your hand and ask, or you can come off mute. You don't really need to raise your hand. All right, next up. So this one is about entrance fees for tournaments. It currently says in our guidelines that teams can charge no more than $100 for an entrance fee for a regular season tournament. This is obviously pretty outdated, and it's not something that teams follow or something that we can enforce as a women's division. Like, I can't come around to you and be like, oh, you charge $200 for your entrance fee or $400 for your entrance fee. Like, I can't impose any sanctions on you really, or like, nor do I want to monitor that with, you know, nor do we as an NWBA want to monitor that. I think that's kind of up to individual organizations to determine what they're going to set their entrance fees at for tournaments. So anyone have any questions on that? Moving on from that. Establish a cutoff date for rostering novice or new players for athletes that are like wanting to attend women's nationals. In the past, we've been really lenient, and if you found a new player 2 or 3 days before nationals and you wanted to bring them to nationals, we let you do that and didn't have any problems with it. But now, because of safe sport rules and some of the other compliance things. We want to put in a clause that says that you have to have new novice players rostered up to 15, may roster up to 15 days before nationals. This just ensures that all those new novice players are compliant with Safe Sport and registered with the NWBA as they need to be. We understand that there might still become the situation where you find a girl, 2 or 3 days before nationals that wants to come, and we as a women's division have always been very lenient in making exceptions. So we could possibly make exceptions to this, but we want to put this in the guidelines because we have kind of had this taken advantage of, and had a lot of players roster very close to the deadline for nationals because they just wanted to kind of take their good time on rostering and not get it done in a timely manner prior to nationals. So we need to have some sort of guidance in place as far as when players need to have all their documentation and everything in. Again, like I said, we as a women's division have made exceptions for a lot of things in the past. So it's not like we're gonna, if you truly do find that new girl off the street 2 or 3 days before nationals, like we probably won't say no to that. But there are other situations that we will say no to in the future. Any questions on that? Jen just had a question for comparison. Are the guidelines the same for prep juniors adult divisions relative to 15 days prior? I'm going to say no. I don't know exactly what theirs are, but I'm pretty sure all the other divisions are more strict than what we are. I think most other divisions go by that December 31st deadline and don't make a lot of exceptions beyond that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the next one. Clarify the number of points allowed on the court. It just doesn't say in our guidelines anywhere. So it is in the rules and regulations, I think. NWBA rules and regulations.
It's in the bylaws. It's in the bylaws and the rules and regulations under team management.
Okay. It's just not in our guidelines specifically, and we've had numerous questions on this year, as far as, and in years past, but specifically this year on the number of points that are allowed on the court, and how many ABs are allowed to play at a time. So it is 15 points allowed on the court. And then teams can play multiple ABs. There is no limit on the number of ABs that they can play as long as their total number of points is less than 15. Any questions on that?
Jen, Mia Hansen, where is that specific rule listed that you can have multiple ABs? Is that in the rules or is that in division bylaws?
It's not currently in there, but that's how.
So this is going to be a proposal. Okay.
Yes, this is a proposal.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So just so we're clear that there's no divisional bylaws, it's divisional policy and procedures, and the only bylaws are the NWBA bylaws that are put out by the board of directors.
Yeah, it's the NWBA bylaws and the divisional guidelines. So we are changing our guidelines just to clarify the number of points that are allowed and that multiple ABs can play. But that's That's the way it's been for years. So it's not really a change. We're just putting it in writing. And truthfully, it limits most teams to only have 2 ABs on the court. It would be really hard to get 3 ABs. You would have to play 15-5. I don't even know that that's possible. Yeah. Anyways, any other questions? All right. So do we want to vote on that now, Tina, or at the end? At the end, you were saying?
Yeah, I have it. It's built all together in the Survey Monkey, so that everybody's voting on everything, the proposals and the executive committee open positions.
I mean, we only have one other thing to go through anyways. So the next point on the agenda is the secretary and treasurer nomination. So we have one nominee for this position. It is Jen Wagner with, I'm going to say the wrong team. You're with Pacific Northwest?
Yes.
Change names. Okay, I was like, I almost said Seattle, and I was like, that's not right. Pacific Northwest. So Jen has been with the women's division. She helped us out this past season with essentially a little grant that we applied for. So she's been involved and is interested in getting more involved with the women's division committee. So Jen, I'll let you kind of give a little intro on yourself.
Thanks. I guess I could do camera as well. Hi, guys. So for those who don't know me, I've been involved with the women's division for as an athlete player for around I think 12 years at this point. And so have served as the Seattle Adaptive Sports Board president for the last 4 years. And I've reached the term limit for that. So starting to think about kind of what my next might be. And again, to Jen's point, like got engaged with a grant that we discovered that thought might be able to benefit the full women's division rather than it just being specific for the Pacific Northwest teams. Definitely thought that it could be something that if we get it would be pretty awesome to leverage across the full division. And what else? I think if anybody has any questions, more than happy to answer, but I'm somebody who definitely likes to get things done and contribute to the success of this organization. It's something that's pretty important to me, and would love to just help in any way I can to continue to grow and support it. No quizzes or no? Okay, guys, you're too easy. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. All right. So that is all we have for the main points. The next thing I just had was open discussion amongst everyone. If you have any other questions, let Tina get herself organized a little bit, and then we can. Oh, Tina is very organized.
Yeah, so the SurveyMonkey link is I just put it in the chat. So the link should work. If anybody has trouble with it, let me know. But all of the voting things are in that SurveyMonkey. So voting on the proposals as well as the executive committee open position should be there.
Jen, has it been announced where and when nationals will be next year?
Oh yeah, that was the other thing. No, it has not.
Okay.
Still working on that. Brandon and Tina are working very diligently on that. So hopefully we'll have more information soon, but nothing official yet.
This is Mia. That's my question. Are the bids closed for women's and military division nationals for the next 2 years?
That I don't have an answer on. Are they closed?
Are they still open? Are you still accepting bids for the location and the dates?
From what I heard,
Yes, we are.
2026
You were
was
just
not, but
Sorry, was that Brandon answering? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I honestly don't know
so
the answer to that, but I
so
I would
bids-
assume so.
One more time.
So bids
The
can be.
question was, oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
All right, Junior's trying to answer. So the bids can be turned in to the NWBA. There is no definitive MOU that's been accepted, so bids can be turned in.
Okay, so then the question is, I missed the first 20 minutes of the meeting, sorry. Assuming that as usual, it's dependent on college, juniors and adults. Is there any guideline for in the past few years, there's been only one weekend when the bids would be considered for? Has that been determined?
Right now, we're taking feedback from the division. Right now, the 3 possible dates would be April. 1 second, please.
Will this be sent out to us? Tucson's interested, I think, possibly. So could that be something that could be shared, just the 3 possible dates? That would make it easier to determine whether or not we can even find a facility.
Well, we're looking for feedback from the division. So the 3 possible dates that we're looking at would be the weekends of, sorry, I'm traveling, so I apologize. I'm looking for the dates right now.
As you're looking for dates, you're looking for feedback from the division. So you're asking us, the
dates.
administrators,
I'm asking
give you.
what would be the best possibility for dates?
I'm sorry, Mia again. Brandon and Tina are on this, right? Brandon is on the call. I can't quite see my screen. Have the adult and junior division dates been set? We know that college division dates are set for Tucson. Has anything else been set? Tina?
Yeah, I was just going to give Brandon an opportunity to jump in if he wanted to.
Yeah. Sorry, Tina. Sorry,
no, go
Mia.
ahead. Go ahead.
We
Yeah,
thought we thought you were eating spaghetti or something. We didn't know where you were.
Yeah, so we haven't announced the dates for adults and juniors. We're very close to. During the annual assembly, I spoke to this a little. So if anyone didn't attend the annual assembly, I highly suggest you going back, watch the recording of it, which is available on the website, which I'm sure Tina can drop into the chat here. But I did have a discussion about 26 nationals and then beyond. To answer your question, Mia, we are very close with adult and juniors, and hope to have it at that time in the annual assembly. I think it said a month's time, so now probably a couple of weeks time. We're also tracking the potential options for hosting women's and military. If you are interested in submitting a bid, we always take bids. We are going to be going through an evaluation process of what our national championships look like beyond 26, knowing that our host for 26 will be a new host. I mean, we're for adult and juniors, and then as well as women's and military, because both Sportable and Turnstone have other endeavors they're looking at, and we are looking at bringing the events to new communities. So to answer your question, Mia, we'll definitely take bids. We are rolling out a new bid process for 27 beyond. We don't have that yet available, and we're going to kind of solicit internally, intentionally, to markets for those bids. So, but glad to have more conversation. I think you've submitted some information in the past and stated some interest on this call. So, glad to share over anything. I think Eric's on here. He could send over to you our most updated version of like MOU and expectations for hosting to kind of give you a frame of mind. But sorry to kind of give you a high level. But there are targeted weekends for 26 that I think either Junior or Eric could pass over to you. That would be in April for this event. So
Let's hear them. I'm sorry. Let's hear them right now if you've got them, because that's the key thing. We've applied 2 or 3 times, and it's always been the problem is you needed a specific weekend, or the division said no, we can only have this weekend because everybody's busy with everything else. So if Junior found them, and those dates are possibilities, then we'll be happy to
yeah.
take another look.
If someone else can pull those up, if someone has them, but me, I believe it's
So it's April. Yeah, it's April 10th to the 12th. The following weekend, which is April 17th and 19th, and then the next weekend after that, April 24th and 26th.
All right, so the last 3 weeks of April are all possibilities. All the last 3 weekends of April are all potential, and all the women's division people who are here would be open to that, because that also seemed to be an issue last couple of times, was that track season is starting or other things are starting. It's one of my issues as an administrator with 4 division teams, just trying to get the NWBA's real direction. But you guys are holding all the balloon strings, and so there's no reason.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think this is where, and I'll just give you a little bit more flavor of like, this is where when we're going from 27 and beyond, and tomorrow's the intercollegiate call, so I know their division's going to talk about this, is we have to reset on what all the events, in the sequence of all the events, what's been happening of the recent years. College has been the first one to pick a date and confirm a date and not work through the process with the rest of the divisions, and not to like call them out, but truly that's what happened this coming year. And they had multiple years where our process actually says our board, and it's in our bylaws that our board has to approve the dates. And that creates a challenge when we go to host, where like you, where you haven't been able to host because it's like, hey, I only have one weekend. Well, we have to look at all the different potential hosts for all the events as a complete sequence. And candidly, I think there's a lot of consideration from you as members of like, hey, do you want to stay with the same cadence of, we start with college, then we go to juniors, then we go to military, or whatever it is. I'm just throwing out, but you know what I'm saying there, where unfortunately we've got our date first, and then everyone's had to work around it, which has created a bit of a scramble. And so I think we're going to internally from the staff team use this as an opportunity to reset, knowing that 27 and beyond, there's no bids confirmed. And so that's where we're going to take that and really improve the process for soliciting bids and hosts for our nationals, and then how we're, getting out ahead of that. So, candidly, I think we all agree we're always playing catch up. I think we want to get multiple years in advance is the goal. And unfortunately, we need everyone rowing in the same direction on the dates. So it's not just, one division picking their dates first and then everyone having to get the leftovers. So.
Amen, brother. So to that point, just wanted to say it out loud, that would really be helpful, as someone who's trying to raise money and support and be a part of all the action. Same with the adults and the juniors. And also, I'm sure I missed it in the first 20 minutes, but just tournament coordination, between the women's teams, seeing if we can talk more early to figure out if we can connect. I mean, there's not that many teams still. Could we get a few more tournaments in various regions? You know, just the Northwest, all the various regions. So you probably already talked about that, but I'd be happy to be on some kind of subcommittee that talks through where we can have women's tournaments. Thank you.
We did not talk about that. I feel like that is a pain point every season.
Okay, well then
And
maybe
it just comes down to more people needing to host.
Well, back to maybe that's a subcommittee or a group of people. You know, I'm not on the division leadership, but maybe the rest, if there's anybody else on this call that is in a position to host tournaments and pay the money to do that and then invite people in, there's precious few of us. So, you know, let's move that around. And if the women's division championship is going to be east of the Mississippi again, as it has been for a long time, and if the nationals are, you know, it's expensive, getting to the point of just West Coast, something west of the Mississippi, on a regular basis would be helpful. So that's something I want to just stay out there to make sure that we're also weighing the factor of how much money we all have to spend to get to places to play these tournaments. So I'd be very happy to have more of those kind of discussions with whoever on the call is helping coordinate tournaments. Jen, new secretary treasurer.
Did you just delegate me to do something? So I haven't even been nominated.
Well, you're in Seattle, we're in Tucson, and then, you know, the teams, there's 14 or 15 teams now.
I like it, Mia. Okay, well, yeah, we'll see if I get voted in and have a chat after.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's something that we could use some help on and more input from the team reps, because I mean, I'm, you know, as you know me, I'm very involved, but I don't plan the tournaments for SAS either. So that needs to come from the people that are in charge of planning tournaments, I feel. That would be really helpful if all of those people could get together and communicate with each other and plan that out. Yeah. Mac, did you have something? I think Amber, you might have your hand raised too.
Yeah. Hey guys. I mean, just kind of piggybacking off what Mia's saying, could it be maybe as simple as like a Google Doc? Like maybe a couple months prior to season starting, like, you know, if I know Mia's gonna be having a tournament on this tournament date, then maybe I don't schedule mine. You know, could we send that out just to all the team reps within the 2 month or I don't know, whatever time frame we think might be appropriate? That could be the
I can try. I did do that 2 seasons ago and I got very little input. So I don't know if there's
all
a
the
good
tournaments.
time. I don't know if there's a good time in the season. Junior, let me finish really quick. I don't know if there's a good time in the season to send that out, Mac. Because I felt like I sent it out maybe in like August and maybe it was too soon. But then, you know, if I wait until October to send it out, that might be too late because people are kind of getting into the, you know, into their season already. So, I mean, obviously I can send it out a few times and every couple weeks, like, yeah, I can figure out how to like send out a reoccurring email and Google and Gmail to kind of like nudge people every couple weeks on that, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that could work. Thank you.
I think it's one of those reoccurring discussions like Brandon just stated, that all the divisions have to have some kind of coordination. If we're all just arm wrestling for our own little spot, it's not going to work. So everybody who's, you know, willing to host something, I think the NWBA has to help us coordinate discussions. And I don't know if just a Google Doc works, because then we're all just waiting for the next person to put their chewing gum on the chair or whatever. Talking would be good. Talking, hey, you know, LWSRA, You guys have regular tournaments. Hey, junior, you have regular. So something like that for the people who have regular facilities and availability would be helpful early in the season. And then along the way, the newcomers who would like to host something, who want to get in, how do you get in? I've found that out the hard way. It was very hard to get in to this club, to figure out who to talk to. So that to me is a function that the NWBA has to help us with. You guys know who the leaders are. The women's division per se, everybody who's on the phone call has leadership or is somehow involved, either on a team or a team rep. So yeah, I personally feel frequent and early, because you do have to get it on people's radar screen, would be helpful for me.
So informal, have the adult Facebook. That's an informal. The formal way is to go to the website. As soon as the tournament gets sanctioned, it's put on the NWBA calendar. I mean, if as a division we want to meet once a month and discuss tournaments, we can do this. It's just going to be one more meeting we're going to have to add as a division. If we want to add that to our agenda, we can. We've tried town halls, we've tried having a tournaments calendar, but like you said, Mia, everybody has to add to this calendar for it to be successful. So if as a division we want to continue to have monthly meetings, it's just going to add one more meeting to everybody. And if everybody's okay with that, then when our secretary, whoever that may be, gets elected, we will task her with setting that up.
So one thing on our end, we already generally know about some tournaments in our area. So like Spokane usually has theirs in October. Tacoma usually has a non-women's division related tournament in February, although they are considering adding a women's division component for this next year. Lakeshore we went to last season, they said that theirs is usually the same weekend and it does involve women's division. But one thing for us for planning is that we're also trying to look at when other big team tournaments are that are more adult division, because we want to make sure that we're not, asking people to travel to another tournament and then the next weekend come to ours. And so as an example, we put some posters out at Nationals saying November 8th and 9th. That weekend is still an option. And then we're also considering potentially the first or second weekend in December. And we wanted to sort of get people's thoughts on that. If anyone is interested in coming to a women's division tournament in the Pacific Northwest, it would be held in Portland, Oregon. And we're looking for 4 to 8 teams. If anyone wants to say their piece on that, if they are interested, we'd love to get gauge some interest and gauge if people would prefer one of those 3 weekends. So Veterans Day weekend, the first weekend of December, or the second weekend of December.
Thanks, Amber. Mia, back to the whole question. The pickle here is Junior just said, well, throw it up there on the NWBA calendar and everybody will see it and show up. Sorry, Junior, don't mean to say it disrespectfully, but that's sort of the issue, is that we have to have it. We have to have a little discussion, right? Because whose women's team is ready to dedicate and ready to go on November 8th and 9th? That's a challenge. Not very many women's teams are ready to go because they're all busy doing other stuff and they're waiting to play on adult division teams or coach junior division teams. And the Pacific Northwest, admirably, I hear that often. We've traditionally have had XYZ tournaments. We got into a pickle with the West Coast Conference Championship of Juniors last year because somebody in the Northwest traditionally has had a tournament, but we didn't all know about it somehow. So I think that the further delving into the communication, yes, everybody has to put it up on a wall somewhere. I would agree that some sort of shared Google Calendar, like Keith Wallace continues to do, could be held by the NWBA, a shared Google Calendar that the NWBA knows, Eric knows everybody's who everybody is, right? You guys know who everybody is. We have to go through the entire list of team reps to find them, to get their phone number, and then to call them. But if you guys who know who everybody is as early as possible could help us with that, I think it would be really beneficial. And SAS, Southerners on Adaptive Sports, will commit as much as we can to going to other people's tournaments financially. I think, if we can get some reciprocation, right? If we go to yours, you come to ours, kind of a thing. So that's part of it, is just making sure we can have some reciprocity in the whole thing. Personally, I think December would be better. I think November's a little too early for most women's teams to commit to being able to go somewhere. And in general, many teams are having trouble being ready to go and having money to go places that early.
And that's totally fair. Usually this tournament was a regional tournament for our area. So it was like Spokane, Tacoma, Idaho, and other like adult division teams. And we happened to have, Parasport and us basically were the women's division. But because from a standpoint of at least Adaptive Sports Northwest, who's one of our collaborating organizations, they don't have an adult division team anymore. They want to make it a women's only tournament. So it's like a first time thing for us in that sense. Obviously we've planned tournaments before, but they just want to do something specific for women's division and see if we can grow a little bit of that friendly play. And obviously, if Tucson had something, ideas at least of when, we would definitely consider coming down there. We know we want to go to Lakeshore in January, but other than that, the only other one we have is Parasport in October right now. So if anyone else has thoughts on December, the biggest thing for us is we need to secure gym space, and we do have potential gym space for any of those 3 weekends, but we sort of need to have like 4 teams that are willing to commit if they can consider committing. And if not, maybe, if you guys have an idea of when you could consider committing, I can bring that to the person who would be helping us get the gym space.
Anyone else have
Thanks,
any?
Amber, what team are you representing? I'm sorry.
On the PNW Rain.
Thanks.
Any other feedback regarding tournaments or the season? We'll definitely put something together to send out for like a Google document for amongst the team reps to help with planning and coordinating closer to the season. But does anyone else have any feedback as far as how this season went? Did everyone get a chance to vote, Tina?
So we're still missing a few team votes. So if you haven't gone in and submitted your vote, please be sure to do that.
Mia here. I think the season went great. We won the championship. Okay, sorry. But as usual, it's one of those challenging things because it comes at the end of everything, and everyone's like, "Wow, yeah." Just back to my whole feeling is women military seem to be in the queue that Brandon mentioned in the rotation. Always now has seemed to be settling in the end because we're doing so many other things. And back to West Coast and East Coast or Midwest representation. To me, I hope part of the bid process is just a historical look-see at all the places. We get it. We know that not very many cities are stepping up to bid, on this huge process because it's expensive. To host a tournament, to host a national tournament is what did Sportable tell me that it cost him? I can't remember the astronomical figure that it cost them to host the national tournaments for 2 years, but it was a lot. So the women's and the military division seem to be kind of less, a little bit of a smaller bite and not quite as huge and difficult and expensive. But I just hope for more discussions with that. So Amber and anyone else who's a team rep or an administrator who has to do with coordinate, is there anyone else on the call who does host tournaments? I can't quite tell. I mean, Jennifer, you guys do, right? Also up in Seattle. Is there anybody else who's hosting a tournament?
We have not for a while because of gym space, but
We host, this is Teresa. We host the tournament in October. And it's this year, it is October 18th and 19th. And last year we had 18 teams ready to play. So I don't know that November is too soon because we don't have any problem getting that many teams. And obviously that's a bunch of different divisions, but we have 18 teams that come to that tournament.
Teresa, thanks for saying that. Are they mostly Northwest teams or are they from all over the country?
I would say mostly Western region.
Mm-hmm. Great. So that back to the Western region, maybe, there's 5 of us, 6 of us now that have Western region women's teams, I guess, with PNW and you guys and SAS and Phoenix. So maybe it's also the regional divisions, right? That just kind of coming up with, if there's enough teams now that we could do something and share it around a little bit, if that to me would also be a helpful discussion. But October, how many women's teams came to the October tournament, Teresa?
2 this year or this past year.
Spokane and Seattle?
Yep. Well, not Seattle, Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Sorry, PW. Yeah. So, again, regional, because, our team hadn't had a practice yet. But so everyone's a little different, the way that they set things up and the way that they expect to have it happen. But I do think it's one of those burning questions that I'd love to see addressed by NWBA as the oversight, the managers, and to help us out here with more discussions, more guidance, not just let's throw it up on the calendar and see who gets there first, and then everybody has to decide.
Hi, it's Gwenner
Well,
again.
as I said, yeah.
I just think, it is hard. But with juniors, I know for Eastern Conference and even the Southeast Conference, most of our conferences have already established the junior dates. I think because teams are so spread out and obviously there's so few women's teams, there needs to be more discussion within your conference or within your region, because that's going to be more palatable for teams, because financially, teams just can't travel and stuff like that. So trying to find somebody within your close proximity that can maybe host something that 3 or 4 teams can get to. I think that's probably more realistic than versus trying to get 8+ women's teams because there's so few of them.
So
Well,
as I said, Mia, we can always.
Yep. Go ahead.
Thank you. We can try to set up a divisional meeting monthly so we can all get on the same page and try to get on this so we can try not to step. But remember, some of these gyms have already been reserved. So, but we will do the best of the division to help each other out.
Junior, that's fantastic. We all understand that. But have there been regular division meetings other than, I'm sure there are, But just back to, we don't have to necessarily do this as a division. We have to do it as the people who are willing to host the tournaments. And that's not everyone in the division, right? So if there's only a handful of,
No, because that's Buddy, who's the commissioner in his divisions, adult divisions, and then that would include juniors divisions with Mike Waller. So it would have to be a town hall, but that's not going to be, unfortunately. I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to get everybody on the same page at one time.
sure, but you got to keep trying, got to keep putting them up there, got to keep inviting people. And if they don't show up, then okay, they didn't show up. For the women, I agree with Mac that it's kind of 4 teams seems to be the thing, plus some university teams. I mean, it's 4 teams made up of 2 women's division and 2 women's intercollegiate divisions, you know, for us usually. So that would be the other thing is there a women's intercollegiate division person or persons, right? Because there's some crossover there. And I think that makes a lot of sense just to keep us all playing together and competing. If the university teams that have a budget to travel and want to play more could also participate in the discussion, I think that'd be great.
Yes, heard loud and clear on that. I don't know how to bridge that. I mean, that's kind of come organically over the past couple of years when the college division teams don't have enough teams to fill out a tournament, then they'll kind of fill in with women's division. But I know for college, it's preference to play college division teams first and foremost. They kind of just, like I said, fill in their schedule with women's division teams to get more games in. But
so Jen, so you guys, just going back in history, I mean, the growth of the division is just awesome. But if you even just go back to when it was juniors and then it was D3 and it was D2, 1 and then D2 and you're, we're all over a very large country, and you have a tournament, let's say Alabama, and a West Coast team goes to that, and you're only there for a day and a half, and you have to travel, and you have to get off of work or out of school, and just all those dynamics. And so, that's why we went to conferences and things like that, so you could narrow it down a little bit, and then you try to play each other. And so it's just that whole dynamics is all this problem here, especially with women's. And so it's awesome that it's growing, but then again, maybe it's something we could divide, maybe a third or something like that, where you could have more of a conversation. Again, too, you've got such a high upper top 4 and then a bottom 4 who wants to go to whose tournaments, because you want to make the best of it. So it's just such a huge growing pain that this division has. And so just got to figure out what, maybe we could talk a little bit about something in that realm of getting a few eyes around the country or meeting or something like that. But it's just a huge growing pain that we just gotta love it but hate it at the same time.
What a great summary,
appreciate that.
Tammy, and it's a great growing pain to have. And it just, you don't want to lose the momentum. To me, not losing momentum. What's the team in Sacramento, that just joined this year who didn't have the money to travel? Molly's team. And so trying to get other teams built up in these smaller communities and then helping them, the teams that have money, the teams that have organization behind them, got to step up and travel, in my opinion. We've got to go on the road, because the teams who can't afford it just can't afford it. And so they're never going to play anyone until the nationals, if that's all that they save their money up for. So I'd kind of like to see that discussion between, again, back to the organizations who have the women's teams and can help can help coordinate, have the women's teams and also other teams, like Junior said. It's the adult division, right? 1, 2, and 3, which we have women spread over all of them. And then we have women spread over the coaching of all of them and the coaching of the juniors. So I do think there should be more discussions offered, and you got to offer them, and people will show up who can and who care about it. I don't know if it has to be a regular once a month, but at least, early on, right now, when you're about to probably announce that you want us to all sign up as teams, let's have some early on discussions over the summer about the coordination of where we're going to play each other, because it's hard to commit to spending the money on registering your team if you're never going to play anything, and if you don't know where people are. That's really frustrating to me anyway. I'm just looking on the NWBA's website, and I guess probably division information has been taken down. I'm just curious that I don't see any. I'm trying to find where the teams are right now. Like, how do we find the names of the team reps? Can you guys send
It's
out?
up there.
Okay.
I mean,
Can you?
It's still up there because I looked at it right before this meeting to write everyone down. But
great. Could you just send a spreadsheet? That would be just a simple thing. Could whoever's in charge of membership just send us all the spreadsheets so we don't have to dig through 14 teams to find the person in charge? That would really be a helpful, I think, simple little thing, perhaps. Just create a little spreadsheet. These are the current team reps. Somebody call them all.
Yeah,
Hey,
I will send it to you. I have it. I will send it up.
Great. Thank you.
Jen, we could do something. We could put a spreadsheet up on a Google Drive and invite everybody to it.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? We have all the results, so we'll just go on to those if we're all good. So as far as the amendment proposals, everything passed with majority votes. And then Jen Wagner was confirmed unanimously to the position for treasurer and secretary. So congratulations, Jen.
Thank you. Tough competition.
Yeah. All right. So that
Thank
is
you,
all
Brittany,
I
for
have.
filling in.
Yes, thank you,
for
Brittany,
your time.
for your time and your effort.
Jennifer, I'm sending you a link to a Google Drive.
Thank you all. It's been an honor and privilege.
Awesome. Well, that is all I have for this evening. No one else has any questions or points of concern. We'll wrap it up here. We'll try to meet up again before the season starts. And then I'll make sure to send out Google documents for tournaments, and then also a list of all the team reps for each team and their email and contact information. So. Anything else from anyone? All right. Well, with that being said, appreciate it all. Appreciate it from all of you. Hour and 12 minutes. So not too bad. But we've had worse for sure. So, thanks everyone. And I will be in contact.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.
Have a good one.